Welcome to another episode of CrafterCast, where we focus on specific topics related to modern content management for digital experience applications. Today, we're going to talk about the confusion between Git-based and API First CMSs, and why these are two entirely different attributes of a CMS and not necessarily mutually exclusive. My name is Mike Vertal, and with me today here is Russ Danner. So Russ, let's talk about why the confusion.
Yeah, I think the confusion is generated by vendors, essentially, or providers of platforms. Most of the time, a vendor is either an API First CMS, a headless CMS, or they're a simple Git-based CMS, and they're competing with one or the other. And so they tend to position themselves against each other based on that set of features. But at the end of the day, it's actually just a set of features.
Right. They're two different attributes, can be of the same CMS. If you do a Google search on Git-based versus API First, you get a bunch of vendors talking about them in the context of either or, right? You're either Git-based or you're API First, and of course, the Git-based CMSs promote their capabilities, and the API First ones kind of denigrate the Git-based CMSs.
And I think that Git-based CMSs, in a way, are an easy target for API First CMSs, in a sense, because there are so many Git-based CMSs that don't have a server component. They're really just using Git and Git-based workflows in a simple way to move around, say, something like Markdown. And so it's easy for a headless CMS vendor to simply generalize Git-based CMS as that simple type of solution and try to edge them out.
Right. Yeah. So why are they stronger together?
I think if you look at headless CMS, I mean, we all know there's a huge amount of benefit to going with a headless CMS, being content first, being API driven, being able to make dynamic content responses. There's just so much value there, right? And if you think about a Git-based CMS, well, what's the value there? Well, it's dev content ops. It's being able to easily facilitate both your content authoring processes and your DevOps processes together, reducing friction and improving your time to market and efficiency and releasing features and so on. Having that capability, and also the versioning capability of Git, which is amazing. It's like a time machine, right? Having those two things combined is a kind of a superpower. And there is no reason why you can't combine them. All you need is a server component on top of that Git component.
Right. Yeah, as a Git-based CMS ourselves at Crafter, we take advantage for the content repository and all of Git's advanced versioning capabilities, right? And it's naturally a much better version control system than databases, and most of these API First CMSs are database oriented and don't have the sophisticated versioning, auditing capabilities of Git.
Exactly. And let's not forget that on top of the versioning, on top of the dev content ops support, Git's a distributed repository. And so you get all the benefits of that distribution, of branching. I mean, there's just so many benefits of Git as a store for content.
So let's drill down into CrafterCMS and how we've integrated Git into our content repository. And on top of that is our API First layer for headless development on top of the content authoring platform, as well as on top of the content delivery platform.
Maybe I could kind of paint a picture here of what these vendors are talking about when they say versus Git-based CMS. So they're talking about a simple CMS that's managing something like Markdown as files in a Git-based repository. In many cases where authors are going and managing content by editing these Markdown files and then using Git flow and the workflow mechanics of something like a GitHub or a GitLab or whatever to basically deploy that content through something like static site generation, right?
Yeah.
What Crafter is completely different from that, completely different. We can do those things, but what we've done is we have Git as a repository underneath Crafter Studio. So we have a tool where authors can work with really robust tools that allow them to do in-context editing, that allow them to do drag and drop. They never touch Git, but they get all the benefits of Git, and they're working through a UI. Right? That content is saved in Git and versioned in Git. Then we can facilitate dev content ops through APIs and DevOps automation via the Git mechanics.
Yeah, and that content authoring platform is an API first platform, and Crafter Studio is an app on top of that, right? But those APIs are available to build your own Crafter Studio, plug in a front end as a service, like we talked about in another episode of this, or extend Crafter Studio with plugins, right?
Right, and that's even on top of what most headless CMSs talk about, which is the delivery APIs. So we have authoring APIs that sit on top of that Git-based repository and facilitate all kinds of content management use cases. And then when you deploy your content to your delivery site, we have a dynamic content delivery platform called Crafter Engine that sits on top of that content and serves dynamic content responses as APIs and even as rendered content. So we get the best of both worlds by combining both of these attributes, API first and Git-based.
That's great. So I think to wrap it up, folks, it's not Git-based or API first. You can have the best of both in a CMS like Crafter. Thanks everybody for watching. If you found this useful, hit the like button and share it with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and so you don't miss any future episodes. And feel free to comment below on any topics you'd love to hear us talk about, or hit us up over at CrafterCMS.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.